Hey, one more thing before you go. Have you ever asked yourself, what's my purpose? Why am I here? I have. Join us as we explore the profound connections between hypnotherapy, ayahuasca, near death experiences, and the extraordinary phenomenon of being a spiritual being having a human experience. My guest in this episode is a documentary filmmaker who's going to share his personal journey of those experiences with us as we dive deep into the captivating exploration of the mind, spirit, and the extraordinary encounters that shape our understanding of existence. I'm your host, Michael Hurst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. My guest in this episode is David Marsh. He grew up with a narrative of one life and then a religious judgment. At the age of 45, he discovered NDEs, which are near-death experiences. We've talked about them before, ayahuasca, and hypnotherapy. This left him with enough evidence and experience to lay down the religious narrative and begin to explore and produce content about the big questions in life. He filmed over 100 episodes of his own video podcast. It's on YouTube. It's a show called Exploring the Human Journey. And we're going to have a great conversation. Welcome to the show, David.
Michael, thanks for hosting this. I love to create conversations, and I feel like these are opportunities for everyone to learn for each of our stories.
I agree with you 100%. Life is a journey, and sometimes we get to experience it from a different perspective, and I think those perspectives always allow us to integrate within our own lives a learning experience or an inspiration or motivation to help us have a better understanding of where we come from and where we might go. So thank you for being here. Very, very much.
It's super good. I appreciate it.
I like to start at the beginning and I like to unfold your life. That show, This Is Your Life from many, many moons ago. I'm better looking than that host. We'll say that.
That's all.
And he's in black and white. I'm not. So where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in the Northwest. I grew up in the area, northern Idaho, and it's it's just the type of place where everybody looks the same. They all think the same. And there's a narrative of you got to work hard, money's hard to get, and you got to do your very best just to grind. And so that was kind of the narrative I was given. And then in addition to that, you combine the narrative of you got one life, don't mess it up, because if you do, you might end up in hell. And so I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. So this narrative of you got to work hard and pay your bills and you get one life. And so I was like, all right, well, I better try to figure out how to do this. And at a young age, I joined the Army. I did business. I installed underground sprinkler systems for a living. And at some point, I'm like, there's got to be more to this existence. There's got to be something more to just paying bills and doing the things of raising a family. And I moved to Phoenix 2007, and I kind of completely changed everything that I was doing. And I got into doing video production. A friend of mine had given me a camera, and I was like, well, I could take what I know in business of how to meet people's needs, and I can create marketing videos. So I did that for a while. But I realized that level of creativity was limited to, hi, I'm a plumber. We're the best. We treat you like family. And I was like, boy, there's got to be more. I have all these stories I want to tell, things I want to share. And that started me on a journey of creating original content, giving opportunities for the things that were in me, where I was exploring who am I, why am I here, to create content that shared my stories with other people. Maybe other people were looking for the same types of things. Maybe other people were having the same questions. So that's when my journey began of creating original content.
That's an amazing journey. I think that we all have that question. It's my old profession, obviously, that question got asked many, many, many times in my old profession, especially when I had to investigate either, an accident that somebody ends up passing away or dying, or a suicide, or a murder or assault, and as the list goes on and on. And it makes us as individuals question a lot of things. I grew up Catholic. I'm not a practicing Catholic any longer for the same reasons. I felt that, I understand where you come from there, because they say this is this, this is this, this is this. And if you go outside that realm, then you're a bad guy. supposed to do that, bad boy, kind of a situ thing. You don't see my Italian hands moving around here. They're talking too. they they the confines of religion. I'm not bashing religion because I respect if anybody that has a religious background, a religious purpose in life. That's cool. It opened my eyes to a broader perspective of what might exist out there. Same as you, that life can be bigger than this as well. That life and death. There's something that still needs to be answered in all of us. I think we're all looking for that. Is there something on the other side? Does life exist on the other side? What happens in a near-death experience? I mean, these are fascinating topics that you delve into, and I think that what a wonderful opportunity you've got to be able to explore that and do it in such a way that you can help us have an understanding. It's amazing. Did you go to college?
I did. I went to college. I got a degree in biology. I did not enjoy that. My family thought it'd be a great idea if I'd go to college and become a doctor, and I was just like, it wasn't my joy space, and that wasn't something I wanted to do. As I went into business and did things like that, I found that as a creative, there's things I wanted to create. Even when you're designing some landscape project, there's creativity there. So I enjoyed that, but it wasn't fulfilling the joy space of telling stories. And only really in the last few years, beginning around 2018, 2019, I began to get into the idea of like, well, what can we share with people about different experiences? And I have a friend in Los Angeles, Lisa Haisha. We created some documentary series called Soul Blaze Your Life. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm enjoying, telling stories. And everything we did was self-funded. And the challenge when you self-fund everything is you're like, okay, how do I create income? So I still have the paradigm where I do marketing videos for people. But in the other time, the other resources I spend with my time and energy is to make things. I went to Honduras in 2021. I went with a lady that had some symptoms from having COVID, and she's like, "Well, I want to heal from the inside out." And so we created a documentary of her going to a healing facility in Honduras. And I was like, "Wow, that was really crazy." I went all over the place. And then later that year, I created something where I went scuba diving with people that are wheelchair users. And I teamed up with an organization and we decided, well, let's do something to tell these stories. And a week before I went on that trip, my 27-year-old son died of a drug overdose, and he'd been struggling with addiction for over a decade. And that was an opportunity for me to now go, oh, if I make my journey available for folks, they can see what I've gone through. And I think that'll be a better story. Because the first iteration of Adapting to Dive was me making a marketing video about this organization. And Lisa had looked at it and she said, I think you need to tell your story. And so I was like, okay, if you tell your story, if you make that connection, why does a filmmaker want to go scuba diving with wheelchair users? Well, because I was on my journey to give back and get out of this space. I think that's a really important thing is when you're stuck in that negative mindset of like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh. If you do something outside of yourself and you give back and get yourself into that space of giving, that's where magic can happen. And so from that documentary, I was like, okay, I'm definitely interested in doing things I'm interested in. And so I created my next documentary series called Journeys into the Soul. And that's an exploration of hypnotherapy and the inner journey that people have while in these deep states of relaxation. And they're called regression sessions. And they go to other spaces and other times where they can find meaning and clarity in their life. And ultimately, it's for personal healing. And that's the series that I enjoyed the most, honestly.
I can imagine. Yeah, I think that we all want that inner peace. We all want that inner knowledge, and to be able to go deep down inside ourselves. And once we realize that and then recognize that, it makes I mean, I had to go through that myself. I was in a wheelchair for a number of years. It's 4 years actually, and it took me a little bit. Well, it's a long story, but basically, I was told by 5 doctors I would be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life based upon my injuries and then my subsequent rheumatoid arthritis. And my oldest daughter asked me to walk her down the aisle, and it created a mindset in me to to change that diagnosis. But I had a number of years where I reflected within myself in a very negative, you know, outlook or a negative perspective, where I had to delve into my own soul and wonder what my purpose was again, because I'd always been a cop. And I went to school to be a cop. And that was my job. I was a sergeant. I was going to be a lieutenant. I was going to go up the line. And that got stopped abruptly. I had to redefine my purpose, sort of like you did. I know that you, prior to you going down to do the scuba diving, which is fascinating within itself. I'm going to have to look for that, by the way, and see how all that played out. With regard, what an opportunity for those individuals to give, put purpose back into their lives again, and understand that they can enjoy life again from that directive. How did you losing your son? Did that help launch you into more of a journey for understanding the soul in the near-death experiences in from that direction, or was there something else that launched that? Had you delved into that previous to your son passing?
In 2015, I started searching for more understanding. Somebody proposed an idea. I heard Rob Bell on a podcast, and he said, "What if heaven and hell aren't destinations where you go to? What if there's states of consciousness that you can be in right now?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got to learn more." I studied near-death experiences. I Googled what happens after we die, near-death experience, and I'm like, well, what happens? Because with the religious narrative, you're told that the devil's always trying to trick you. So I had heard pastors saying in a near-death experience, it's the devil trying to trick you. And that's not what I found. I found thousands and thousands of case studies where people said, I crossed over, I met with some spiritual consciousness. It could have been an angel, it could have been a guide, it could have been a spiritual entity. And they said, your life's not over. Go back and continue your journey. And I was left with the understanding, indeed, we are spiritual beings having human experience. In 2017, somebody recommended that I read the book Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. And that book revolutionized everything. He had 40 years of research as a clinical hypnotherapist, where he had over 7,000 case studies of people saying, I chose my life, I chose my parents, I chose my body, and I chose spiritual partners in which to have these human experiences. And they equate it to it being more like a play or a movie or a theatrical presentation, that we come here and we learn and we expand and we have experiences that informs our soul as our soul grows. And I was like, oh my, so that means I'm at cause for everything in my life. I'm no longer a victim. And when my son had his first experience with an overdose in 2017, I did CPR. I was able to revive him. He actually had a near-death experience, and he said, Dad, I was given information. I was met with this beautiful being of light, and it was kind of a feminine presence. And she told me that my life wasn't over, and that you and I definitely, we were here to help each other on our journeys. And there were personal things he said to me that encouraged me, and I said to him. And he said, I don't remember everything she told me. And she had laughed and told him, he goes, you won't remember this, but just know you're on the right path. Later, I had a hypnotherapy session in which I saw myself as this being, and I was in this like outer space platform, and I saw my eldest child as a bright light. And from far away, I could see him. He was riding a Harley Davidson with a leather jacket, but he's this being of pure white light. And I'm like, what is going on? And he's going around from group to group. And he comes to me and he says, I'm looking for someone that will have enough courage to be my father in my next lifetime. Will you be my father? And it hit me. I'm like, okay, so this is an agreement that he and I have made prior to him coming here. I have enough courage to go through this. That was 2017. In 2021, he did have another overdose. I did CPR. He was unable to come back fully, and he passed a few days later. They kept his heart going, but there was no oxygen to the brain during that time where he was unresponsive. And while we were standing around his hospital bed, I felt this realization. I have enough courage. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Tears are streaming down my eyes. I didn't want to have this as an experience, but I knew I had enough courage to go through this. And he and I are and will always be forever soulmates tied in this cosmic journey. And my partner Gail, she heard outside. She goes, "I keep hearing, Mom, I'm not in there. I'm not in there. I'm not in that body." And we were able to release him. It doesn't mean that we weren't sad. It doesn't mean we don't have grief. But I was able to contextualize it, and he had an experience he needed to have in this lifetime, in this incarnation, and it's part of the great cosmic puzzle. That gives me some solace. It helps me go forward so I don't maintain in a space of grief, like, I don't know how I can go on. Now I know I'll see him again. Most likely, we'll probably laugh our asses off about the human journey and how all these emotions come in.
What a profound opportunity to impact you have a better understanding about near-death experiences, spirituality, and life after death. What an amazing! I was just feeling the emotion for you. I'm sorry that you lost your son, but I'm also
Yeah.
grateful that you had that experience, because I think when we have those experiences, it gives us a better understanding of our soul and how we are connected and how we're all connected. Whether we think we are or not, we're all connected in one form or another. I mean, that's you and I connected in regard to this and having this conversation and sharing it with the world. So, yeah, I get a little emotional with that. I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, I like to
And
think there's no coincidences. We're here to help each other on our pathway. I mean, Ram Dass has a
yeah.
favorite quote where he says, "We're all just walking each other home." And I just think that's a wonderful thing. We all individuate. So, yeah, we're all one in this ethereal spiritual realm. But man, we are here individuated. Man, oh man. And when I can share my journey, if it helps someone else on their journey,
Yeah.
I think that's what we're here for.
That's a good thing. That's yes. I love that. Yes, we are on the same level at that. We absolutely do. In how many interviews have you conducted, or how many interviews have you had with individuals that had near-death experiences? And what kind of an impact did that have on your understanding of near-death?
I studied them for a long time and I heard these people. And then when I started recording experiences on my YouTube show, I got to firsthand hear it. And man, the authenticity, the people that, I mean, with
Yeah.
tears in their eyes. And sometimes when we're thinking, we look up and we get that thinking, and they would be like remembering the visceral feeling. Jeffrey Olson was an impact. What a great story. He's written some books, and he talks about being above his body, looking down, seeing the family. He talks about going to the other side and just the
Yeah.
visceral experience he had. And each person I would talk to, I spoke with many people that had near-death experiences. They were all common. They were all similar. There was a entity, a spiritual being on the other side, absolutely no judgment. It was like, hey, you're here, so you're loved. And like, oh, did I do something wrong? Did I get it right? And they're like, yeah, that doesn't exist. Don't worry about right and wrong.
Don't live in the past. Just needs to keep moving forward. He needs to break off the rearview mirror.
I'm fighting and I'm screaming and I'm saying to God, where are you when I need you? What did I do wrong?
Takes a sword out of the sheath, puts it to her neck. Think they're gonna kill her? I don't know what to do.
I get to help people explore their human consciousness.
The inner wisdom, the higher self can come through.
And it can answer questions like, why am I here? What is my soul purpose?
It's a guided process. What the person is meant to get in that journey is what's going to come through.
You simply had an experience. So most of them, because it's a near-death experience, they're like, you got to go back. And they're like, okay. Some of them they had choice. Do you want to go back? And they're like, yeah, I have family, I have to raise my kids. And yes, they choose to come back. So that for me was neat to see that firsthand experience. I've never had a death experience, in physical form, but I've had that deep state of meditation, whether it was through ayahuasca plant medicine or my own hypnotherapy sessions, where I felt that other presence. I felt that being on the other side. So I think it's all the same space we get to, whether it's with some psychedelic idea of crossing the veil, or if it's a hypnagogic state in deep meditation, or if it's a near death. I think consciousness is so much bigger than we expect. It's not in the body. I think consciousness is outside the body, and our body's inside consciousness. And so I think with that paradigm, all these things can inform us on our soul journey.
What an amazing perspective. I hadn't thought about it that way before. That's what an amazing perspective. Do you feel from all of what you've learned and what you've seen, do you think that does that without, I mean, obviously, I don't want to put you in a corner, but do you think that that provides some kind of a proof of life after death, that we do have a soul that lives on?
The first thing I realized is we have amnesia before we come here. Whew. Man, whatever they do on the other side or
Yeah, boy.
whatever we do with ourselves, we can't remember anything. And so I think that's the reason is so we can be authentic to this. I'm David in this lifetime. Maybe last time I was a different lifetime and I've seen these other experiences. But right now, I'm going to be the best version of David that I can be. And if I had this regret that in the last lifetime I hurt Michael and I did something to, cause him pain and grief, I would walk in that energy all the time of like, can't wait to get on this podcast so I can apologize. I'm so sorry. Well, I don't have a remembrance of that. So now you and me can just have our authentic experience. So for me, it was enough to inform me that just be the best version of myself that I can be in this lifetime. And I didn't have to get caught up in all of the other earth mythologies of trying to be good enough and trying to earn salvation or being a original sin and you're not worthy and Jesus has to save you. All those are just experiences that we create, kind of part of the game. And for me, getting out of victimhood, that's part of my soul journey this time. And I think that's why I picked such a religious family to come into.
From that perspective, yeah, and I mean, it's I studied theology for a little while, especially. I grew up in I told you I grew up in a Catholic environment, and a staunch Catholic environment, and it's interesting because as a kid, when my parents got divorced, my mother couldn't go to church and couldn't take communion because she was now divorced, and then of course we didn't go to church, and for the longest time that's what opened my eyes. I'm kind of going, well, we didn't do anything. We're kids. We didn't tell my parents, our parents to get divorced. We didn't tell our, mom and dad, hey, you guys both need to split up. You go over there and you go over there. Why can't we go to church and why can't we go and have communion? It took me a long journey past that because my mother, not to get off track, but just talks about the spirituality and the religious perspective and how sometimes religion blocks us from moving forward in such a way. She was desperate to belong to that community. So we tried out in different churches, Baptist, Southern Baptist, and there's a difference. I found that difference out. Nazarene, everything except for the Jewish, because of, you couldn't just walk into a Jewish church and Mormon, because you couldn't just walk in and say, hey, I want to be Mormon. It was a journey because everywhere she went, she was trying to fit in, and she finally ended up in the Presbyterian church. And what I realized in going to all these different churches was that they all had a Bible, but their Bibles were different. This Bible said one thing, this Bible said another thing. I mean, they all still had fundamental things that were all unique, all the same, excuse me. But then they also had different versions of different things. So, I started opening my eyes to explore a little bit more outside that realm myself, because then I thought, okay, well, why would this religion not believe this way or this way or this way or this way? And just like Catholics, you grow up, I'm not sure what religion you grew up in, but Catholic, they tell you, you can talk to the angels, but not really, because you got to go through a priest to talk to an angel or talk to an archangel or a saint or whatever. You can go pray to a saint, kind of a thing. But in my journey, I learned that there's more to this universe and that we can step outside of that box of religion. You can still be religious. I believe in one source. I believe in God. I believe that there's angels up there. I believe in archangels. I believe that we can speak to them. I believe that we can ask them for help when we need to ask them for help. Whereas when I was growing up Catholic, especially as a kid, I was told you can't believe that way because you're not allowed to talk to angels. Kind of a situation.
Yeah. The religious paradigm that I was given was a Protestant version, and it was you get one life, and the whole point of this life is to get propitiation for the sinful nature that you already are. You were born into original sin. There's nothing you can do about it. When I was 6 years old, my daddy sat me down and said, David, God loves you so much. If you were the only person on earth, he still would have sent Jesus to die for your sins. I remember thinking, oh man, I'm that bad that if I'm the only person,
Yeah.
Jesus still has to die for my sins. And do I have to kill him? I mean, how's that going to work? It messes you
Yeah.
up as a kid. So I grew up with this narrative, you're not worthy. And it's pervasive even to today.
It is.
I'll have a conversation with someone and I'll think, oh, they must know more than me because I was told never question your authority. The Bible is your authority. Your
Yeah.
pastor's your authority. Your parents. And so, I mean, that's a mind job. Even
Yeah.
at the age of 54 now, I'll be speaking with somebody. I'm thinking, whoa, they're probably more important than me. I probably shouldn't say anything. And I'm like, man, I have to deconstruct from that unworthy paradigm. It's just so
Yeah.
pervasive.
Catch ourselves.
You
Yeah. But
know.
my wife's grandfather was a pastor, and they were really, 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 really strict with everything. And it was interesting because he kept sending me, or sending the kids from the time they were born, 1 year old, these pamphlets about, renounce your sins. And in fact, he wouldn't marry us because I was divorced, by the way. He said, my Diane wanted, hey, can you marry us, Grandpa? And he said, no, I can't marry you because Michael's divorced. And he kept sending these things, and these things were like, you got to give these to your kids, birthday card. So instead of $1, instead of, something like that, he would get these pamphlets that would go in there that would say, you're born with sin and you're going to need to, get rid of your sin. You need to wash this away. And I'm going, dude, stop sending this to my kids because my kids don't know sin. They're born innocent. They don't know sin. So, I did it nicely. Don't think the cop stop, do it now.
Yeah.
But, I had to do it nicely, but we had to have this conversation. I sat him down and said, look, I respect this. I believe in God. I'll teach my kids to believe in God, but, they're not, quit telling my kids that they're full of sin because they're not. They're 3 years old and 4 years old and 5 years old. Don't tell my kids they're full of sin. So that, again, contributed to me opening my more eyes and open my eyes some more. My brain was moving faster to look at the outside of this. And, I find it like intriguing and fascinating that you had this opportunity to talk to so many people that had near-death experiences in I'm assuming different countries, not just here in America, but different countries.
Well, so what I did is I created a docuseries about people that have an inner journey, not necessarily a near-death experience, but a regression session. And when they get
Oh,
into this state of relaxation, and then they see possibly a past life, an other dimension. So it's kind of going into that quantum realm of consciousness where you're outside of your body. So these facilitators, they take them through, well, what is coming up? What is your subconscious telling you? And so you could say hypnotherapy. Dolores Cannon has her methodology is QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis technique. There's other people that, they might call it spiritual regression. It's like an NDE, but you don't have to die. It's not a death experience. It's simply a meditative space in which you just relax and you're like, okay, what do you see? Oh, I'm starting to see images. It's like explaining a dream or maybe a daydream that you're having live. And you're like, oh, this is coming up. I see myself on a different planet and having these experiences. Well, what do you think that means? Oh, it's informing me the life and the purpose and the lesson is this, and they receive this information. It's powerful. Anyone can do it. It's nothing special. You're not hypnotized. You're just simply allowed to go into that relaxed state where you get rid of your physical body sensations and you're like, okay, what's coming up for me? What's on the inside? And everything that comes up is here to inform this life because this is the most important life you're living, the life you're living now.
Now, did all of these conversations and these experiences give you a better understanding of life that we reincarnate?
So from everything I've ever read and studied from all of these modalities, spiritual being human experiences, not one human experience, many, 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 many human experiences. So we come here, we play the human game, and then we go back to the other side and we evaluate. And we're given pod soulmates and we're given a spiritual guidance team. And there's all these beings that have gone through this and have experienced this, and they're here helping us. And apparently there's this giant soul journey that we do. I don't know if it's for entertainment. I don't know if it's cosmic consciousness. It's just like, well, what else can I experience? And as creative as you can be coming up with ideas for for talks, for movies, for music, whatever you can create. Apparently, consciousness is doing the same thing, creating these multifold experiences in the multiverse of worlds and experiences and beings and everything. I think that's what this whole thing about consciousness is what can I do to explore something? I'm curious. So curiosity and wonder,
Yeah.
I find, are two of the most amazing attributes that we can embody.
So basically, we're kind of like a Disneyland here on Earth.
I think so. Everybody contextualizes it. They see some horrific incident. And Journeys into the Soul, it's a documentary series. It's 30-minute episodes. And the client may have had a 3-hour session, but I was like, okay, 3 hours is too long. How do I condense this? So I show who they are. I show who the practitioner is. They have a little interview for a few minutes to kind of get an idea of what their intention is. Then I show what their experience is. And episode 1, it's on our channel. You can go to our YouTube channel. You can go to the website, Journeys into the Soul, and you can see episode 1. This guy, Ryan, he was having an experience of a horrific incident. He loses his wife. He goes through this entire lifetime, and then he has a death experience. And then now he's reflecting on what he just experienced. He realizes, oh, I just spent my whole life being bitter and angry. He says, the lesson I'm getting is don't waste your life. Now, I did a follow-up conversation with him just a few weeks ago, over his experience that he had filmed last year. And I was like, Ryan, how was 2023 different? And how are you going into 2024? And he says, Dave, honestly, 2023 was really hard for me. But I had that hypnotherapy experience, and I realized that even though my life is hard, I'm not going to waste my life. I can change things up. In that session, I saw I could have changed my life. I could have moved. And so it informed his current life. And he goes, yeah, he says, things aren't great, but I'm not really worried about it because I know that I have unlimited opportunity while I'm still here breathing and having this human life. So, man, what a powerful follow-up. How
That's
the
brilliant.
demonstration of the work, is very applicable to us today.
Yeah, that's brilliant, actually. And ironic enough that it just got back to you a week ago. Must have known we were going to have this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. It's all in the quantum.
Got a message.
Yeah.
Yeah, has that changed your perspective a little bit on life and death, even from a
Yeah,
religious point of view?
100%. So one thing about religion that you get certainty. Honestly, you don't have to have
Yeah,
faith if you're religious. All you got to do is say, well, I'm just going to do what the pastor says. I'm going to do what the Bible says. I'm going to do what the authority figures tell me. And you don't have to have faith. You just are given
yeah.
certainty that you're right. In fact, you're safe, you're secure, and a little bit superior because you got the truth. And I was given that religious paradigm that I had to go out and proselytize. I had to tell other people, hey, if you don't do what I tell you, believe in the Bible, get saved from your sins, you're going to burn in hell.
Right.
Conscious eternal torment forever and ever and ever. And what I find is in all of these experiences, there's no divinity on the other side of this human experience that judges you. You judge yourself. No one judges you. You go, oh, I didn't do it right. And then your guides, they come up, they put their arm around you and they go, you know what? Be kind and gentle to yourself. It was just a human experience. Now that you've learned and you've grown, do you want to go back? And you're like, oh yeah, let's do it again. Back this time,
And
I want a hard experience.
get
So
back
you
in
come
line.
here, and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Life is so hard. I have got divorce. I have bankruptcy. I have a son that died of a drug overdose. What was I thinking? Here we go, Michael. Here we are.
Been there, done that. It's like I reflect back on people say, my wife and I believe that you get to choose what you want to do when you come back, and I have to stop and go, boy, was I dumb.
Yeah. Well, what I've learned is it's not what you do, it's what you learn from what you do. And so that takes the pressure off. Even if you don't feel like in this lifetime you're like, oh, I wasn't successful. I didn't make millions of dollars. Oh,
Yeah,
I had a divorce. I didn't stay married for 100 years. It's not what you did, it's what you learned from
it's
what
what
you
you
did.
learned.
Because
Yeah,
there's no right or wrong decision. You just make a decision and then you go, well, what did I experience from that decision?
I agree with that. I think that we come in even now. Sometimes I have to reflect. And again, this isn't my story for the show, but in reality, I have to stop and think that as a police officer, I had a lot of contact with a lot of people. I worked in an area, it's Colorado Springs area, So there's a lot of tourists. There's Pikes Peak, there's the Cave of the Winds, there's the cliff dwellings, there's all these, tourists that come from all over. The Air Force Academy. I mean, there's everything is there. I had a lot of contact with people. But when I was done with that, not to my choosing at the time, when I had to redefine my purpose, I had to come to an understanding that life can still move forward. And this is the message I think we're talking about even in this episode, in this conversation, that life can still move forward. Because when I redefined my purpose and I understood that, hey, I found this platform, that I have a voice that, I'm grateful. I'm heard in 59 countries. I've talked to people from all over the world on a regular basis. And I've got stories in conversations that help to inspire people and to motivate people. And from that perspective, I never would have done that if I'd have stayed being a police officer. So, I was on that path up to the point that I was supposed to be. And then I was given a new path. Earlier when you were talking about whether you take the left or you take the right, I was given the new path that, here's an opportunity for you to take a new path. You can stay on the left, feel sorry for yourself, feel angry, feel get in denial. You can, wither away in anger and resentment and everything else. Or you can take the path on the right, or vice versa, whichever one was the right one. You take that one, and something different can come out of that experience and be more fulfilled. So now I don't work holidays. I don't work nights. I don't work weekends. I'm home with my family. I get to be a father like I should be. And I mean, not that I wasn't as a cop, but sitting in a wheelchair, I felt sorry for myself. I really wasn't the father I should have been. I could have been because of the way the situation was. It changes. I think if we look outside of ourselves, we can understand that sometimes we're being talked to by the universe, and that we can find purpose and we can find new purpose when we're presented with it, like you did. I mean, you have created an environment that is worldwide, number one, delivers messages of positivity, number two, gives education and the motivation for individuals to understand that there is something else that they can believe in and understand from that belief without losing their original belief. So it's an opportunity. What an amazing thing.
Yeah, it bolsters it. I've recorded people having these regression sessions, and what did they learn from it? And every single session that I recorded has a theme that I learned from and that you can learn from too. Every single one of them. Enjoy your life. That's why you're here. You're not supposed to be all the time, I'm sad and I'm depressed. And if you are sad and depressed, you'll learn about your pre-birth planning. Oh, I chose to come here. There's episodes about what decision should I make? I don't know. Well, just make a decision. You're not going to get it wrong. You're going to learn. There's other episodes of like, there's nothing I need to do. All I have to do is be. Just the experience of being here is enough. There's episodes about being grateful. One of my favorite episodes was filmed in Glastonbury. My now friend, Scott, he had an experience where he saw himself as a little boy on the streets in the 1800s. It was kind of the Oliver Twist times. And at this experience, he was cold, he was hungry. As he goes through this episode that we filmed, he realizes that he is now a strong man, and the therapist, she says, would you go back and give him a gift? He says, well, I gave him a coat, and he's so happy. She says, well, what gift does he give you? And he says, he doesn't have anything to give me except for what was on his feet, and it's wraps. It's kind of his shoes, but it's wraps. And he says, oh my goodness, my shoes don't leak. I have nothing that I have to feel sorry for. He says, I can be so grateful because this little boy gave me the only thing of value, and my shoes, they don't leak. So I was like, wow, what a way to contextualize gratitude. Every single episode has something. Number one, it has to be entertaining. It has to be fun to watch. It has to hold your attention. Number two, it has to have some inspiration in it to move us forward, because that's what we all want in life, is something that inspires us. There's enough things that are depressing out there that we can see in the media nonstop. So I'm like, well, how can I encourage myself and encourage all of us? And that's what the documentary series is about.
How did you do you practice hypnotherapy yourself?
So I did become a hypnotherapist. I did do the quantum healing hypnosis technique. There's a school here in the Phoenix, Arizona area called the Southwest Institute for Healing Arts. I did some training there. And most recently, I am now a facilitator for quantum consciousness experiences. Pete Smith he worked with the Dr. Michael Newton Institute for a long time. He still volunteers with them, helping them in their as they continue to expand their institute. And he also has a new way to access the quantum because everything ripples out. You're part of a fabric in the multiverse. And if you can heal an aspect of yourself, you ultimately heal the all. And so now I do facilitate helping people have their own quantum consciousness experiences where they'll go back to maybe a decision point where there was a point in life where they decided, I'm going to do this thing. And then they go, I wonder what would have happened. So you can go back and say, well, now you can talk with that aspect of yourself. What would have happened? You'll be absolutely amazed at what comes up. You're like, oh, I realize now I don't have regret because if I'd have stayed in that other thing, this would have happened, or something would have informed my journey. So yeah, it's a beautiful experience.
Yeah, I think it's I was trained. My oldest daughter's trained as a hypnotherapist, and I actually was trained as an investigative hypnotist, where we kind of did the same thing, but we didn't take people back, to a previous life. What we took them back to was an incident. They were a victim or a witness of a crime. At the time that I was doing it, without giving away my age, at the time I was doing it was many moon ago, but it really wasn't allowed in court. But it did give us the opportunity to open up new leads, and it worked because we take somebody back to a situation and they could kind of, have a more relaxed approach to looking at stuff that they wouldn't have remembered without going back and re-examining it, from a perspective of safety. So I wholeheartedly believe in hypnosis and the hypnotherapy perspective in regard to healing, especially, and having a better understanding of that. I wanted to explore taking people back previous lives because I thought that would be fascinating to be able to do. Just the mere thought of it gets me kind of like, excited about the opportunity of listening to these people tell about another life, another time, another, makes you wonder because how many lives have we had? How many more lives am I going to have? Kind of a thing. In all of these experiences, do they have any type of a hierarchy system? Like I've heard this in several of our conversations about, well, you have to come on here and you have so many levels. You can go to level 1 and then you have to go back and learn stuff. And then you're up to level 2 until you finally reach kind of a heaven perspective, so to speak. And that's kind of where you can stop and you can choose to not go back and just kick your feet back and put your feet up or whatever you want to do. Have a martini or a glass of tea or whatever.
Yeah, the human mind is going to give us an opportunity to contextualize these very complicated spiritual principles. So we're going to say higher, lower, good, bad. We're in the duality system, the hot, cold, right, wrong. We're in that system. So from everything I've studied in consciousness, there's this overall soul journey that we're all on, and it's about resonance and vibration. It has nothing to do with higher or lower. My spirit guide is higher than me. No, your spirit guide has a different resonance, just a little bit different. And the higher that resonance spins, the closer it gets to complete and utter equanimity, complete peace. And that's that God consciousness. And we're in different states of experience. So from what I understand from reading Dr. Michael Newton's books and Dolores Cannon books and having these experiences is there's this somehow if you would, a cloud of consciousness and a little puff comes off, and that's your individuation of consciousness. And you go, what would it be like to be Michael for a while? What would it be like to be David for a while? What would it be like to be Mary? Or, put any name in there, or put your personal name in there. What would it be like to have this experience as you? And so the soul then goes through it. What would it be like to be a victim? What would it be like to be the abuser? What would it be like to be a drug addict and have a life where you suicide yourself with an overdose at the age of 27? So these are all things that inform this curiosity and wonder. So when we leave this lifetime, we then come back into a space of resonance, and you've got other soul beings that are around you that also came off about the same time, and they're all having these same experiences, and you're create this little pod, this soul group, and all these people that are in these regression sessions, they see these principles and these elements, and they're like, okay, so now I'm here to learn and inform this life, this pain, this trauma. In episode number 3 that I filmed, it's called I Need My Wolf Back. And there was this woman, she was in Croatia, and she was like, I think God's punishing me. And she sees herself in a past life where, and in this lifetime, you need to make sure you know that she has had some sexual trauma, some sexual abuse at a 12-year-old age in this lifetime. And in her hypnotherapy experience, she goes back to a past life where she sees herself as this big, tall, masculine man. He's got long, flowing hair. He's got like the hat of a wolf on it. And he sees that he has a harem of women. And she goes, oh no, I'm being punished because I've abused women in the past. And now I have to pay for my sins to balance karma. As she goes through her journey, she realizes, no, I didn't have to do that. These were just experiences. In fact, God and I are the same energy. So I'm the one that wanted myself to have these experiences in this life that I feel trauma from. And she says, oh, I don't have to feel trauma. It was just an experience. And she says, I need my wolf back. I now have my wolf back, which is my personal power. And it completely changed her life from God's punishing me. I have to pay back karma to like, it was just an experience. Now she's living happy, she's moving forward, and she's creating experience in her life from a place of personal power, not victimhood. And that's the power of this regression process that I filmed.
That's brilliant. I mean, what a brilliant story too, an analogy with what we can do from our conscious and our subconscious to be able to recognize that. Because we all go through that. I think as human beings, we as human beings always have to question because we grow up in an environment. If society puts these pressures on us that even from childhood, you have to follow it, like you said earlier, you have to follow a certain direction. You can't believe in this, you can't believe in imaginary friends when you're, I had 2 daughters, they'd have tea and they'd have imaginary friends sitting at the tea table kind of a thing. You have typical society says you can't believe it. That's, you grow up. You need to grow up. You can't believe in imaginary friends. You can't do that. Whereas we, from a conscious perspective, I would say we've as a deeper conscious, in opening that up with hypnotherapy, gives us a better perspective of what we have to deal with in a conscious state, and what is real and what the reality is.
Well, this is the practice realm. So we, you and me, we designed the matrix so we could practice. So in the spirit realm, the soul realm, we come up with ideas, things we want to learn, things we want to grow from. And then we go, okay, now I got to put it into practice. So we incarnate into this body to actually have those experiences. Yeah. But part of the trickiness of it is that amnesia. I can't remember anything. So that's part of the process.
I can't remember why I'm here, but hey.
I can't. Yep. Yeah, and then you get like, I'm a victim. There must be a God somewhere that's punishing me, or there's a devil attacking me. And then, all the earth mythologies that we inform ourselves, you should be quiet and not be heard. You should, all these things that we're told is, put up a good a stiff upper lip, and, don't let them see you cry. And all these narratives we've been given, and then we take on all these earth mythologies. And I loved earlier how you said where you're like, my kids don't tell them about sin. They're not sin conscious. They're love, they're children, they're play conscious. Keep them in that space. But oh no, we get told this is who you are. We get defined by other people, whether it's through religion or politics or community or society. We're told this is what, real men don't cry, and all that things, all the narratives that we're given, they're put onto us. And part of the regression is coming back to who am I? What's the authenticity? Who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Those get answered in these deep states of regression. That's what I love about this.
Well, it's an amazing opportunity, I think, and what a journey to be able to be part of this and create what you have created with this. It's Journeys into the Soul, which I think in itself is, that's a good title. I mean, it talks to you, right? Because we all want. I believe in a soul. And I believe animals have a soul. I believe that the earth has a soul. And, I believe in Mother Nature. I grew up with a large number of Native Americans back in Colorado, and I know how they talk to Mother Earth. in how they respect Mother Earth, and the trees talk, and the plants talk, and the bushes talk, and the animals talk, and things like this. And they say that it all has a soul. That everything here is
Yeah.
energy, and it's living energy. The plants live, animals live. It's all a living energy. With regard to creating journeys into the soul, what the process of that? How long did it take you? May I ask?
Well, I was looking for a show. I went on Amazon. I Google searched it. I'm like, there's got to be something where somebody's recorded these sessions where people have regression sessions. Because I was fascinated with Dolores Cannon, fascinated with Dr.
Yeah.
Michael Newton. I'm like, this is like the answer to all my questions in life. Spiritual being, human experience. They're giving proof that it happens through all these case studies. I'm like, well, I want to see a show about that. I couldn't find a show. A couple little things, little documentary here and there. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to birth the idea that I have for a show. So I have some connections with people. I started emailing and calling. I contacted the Michael Newton Institute. I got to be friends with Dr. Diana Paik, who's the executive director. I contacted the Dolores Cannon folks. I ended up speaking with Julia Cannon herself, who's Dolores's daughter, who's continuing the work. Both Newton and Cannon were born in the 1930s. They both passed around the same time, 2014, 2016. So they were contemporaries. They didn't really know each other. So I'm like, okay, the two pioneers of consciousness through regression, I've got to share these experiences. So I started reaching out to practitioners under the auspices of these two organizations. And I'm like, I want to do something that I want to do something that entertains people, but also kind of educates them, and I want to be authentic. So they're like, you need to meet Suzanne Spooner. She's the world's #1 QHHD practitioner, lives in Des Moines, Iowa. So I did a Zoom session. I'm like, I'd like to come out. She's going to come on out. We found a date and a time. We filmed episodes together. I live in the Phoenix area. There's a practitioner, Dr. Erica Middlemiss. And I'm like, hey, you're like 10 miles away. We met up, had a coffee shop, had a conversation. Can I record? Yes. And so we created an episode, and it just started to roll. I went to San Francisco, filmed with Dr. Diana Paik. We created an episode. And from there, a lady named Trina Sheridan reached out to me. She said, I'm in Ireland. You should come over to Ireland. I'm like, I'm terrified. I've never been to Europe. I don't understand how it works. I don't know where I'd stay. I don't know what I would do. She says, there's a way that you can get around to these countries through this airline, Ryanair. It's very cheap. You can under $100 for these flights. I'm like, really?
Wow.
So very inexpensively, I was because I'm self-funding all this. I didn't have a lot of monetary support for this. So I'm like, okay, well, I was able to buy a round trip ticket from London and back with 5 weeks in between. And in those 5 weeks, I would stay with somebody for 3 or 4 days, film with their client, film with them, film the session, maybe see the area. I got to go to all these places. Trina helped facilitate that. In fact, she's the practitioner on episode 1 with Ryan. Brilliant lady. And from there, I got to go to Denmark and Italy and Croatia. I got to go to the island of Gozo, which is next to Malta. I got to go to Spain, back up to England, where Isle of Wight is, and Glastonbury. At the end of this 5-week journey, I flew back to Phoenix. My heart was full. My computer drive was full of all this information. I spent all of last year putting it all together. It's on Amazon Prime. It's available for anyone. It is on video on demand. Amazon Prime didn't give me any deal. They're like, if you want to put your thing here, you can. People can see it. They've got a price point. I offer it through my website. It's a little bit less expensive, but it's a place where people can find information if they're looking for it. Some people, they're just like, yeah, I don't know. I go to work and pay my bills, and this just sounds like a bunch of woo-woo hooey to me. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Other people like David in 2015 was like, I need this information. And that's who I filmed it for. I filmed it for David in 2015. That's who loves the show more than anything.
That's brilliant, actually. That's just, that's brilliant. And the way this all came together, that was just the universe talking to you, and that it had to be put together. It's something that needed to be done.
Yeah, it's your joy space. And when you see something that should be created and it's not there, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm the one that's supposed to do that. And for me, I think it's art. Art comes from either your pain or your pleasure, or your joy space. Well, in this place, it was my pain of like, I'm not worthy. And these sessions were able to inform me that I've had personally, and now I'm seeing other people being informed. There is a reason and there is a purpose. You are here. If you weren't here, the universe would be incomplete. So the most important thing you can do is enjoy the ride. And the two things that saved my soul are hypnotherapy and ayahuasca.
I,
Ayahuasca is
we got to
psychedelic.
talk about that. Yeah, we have to
It's
talk about
not legal
ayahuasca.
everywhere. Shall we? Then we shall. But I decided rather than trying to get around the legalities, I'm like, let's do a show about hypnotherapy because there's no illegal things with that.
Yeah, yeah, but ayahuasca, it's being coming from a cop, coming from a guy that was a cop. Yeah, I can understand that. But we've always had a fascination with ayahuasca. I've had a couple of conversations with shamans, quote unquote, that say that they've used ayahuasca, but they really haven't gone into great detail in regard to the ritual. It's kind of a sort of a ritual.
Well, I've had
Can you
12
help us to understand the
ceremonies
process?
I've done. Yeah. So it's called plant medicine. Medicine doesn't taste good. It tastes like molasses being mixed with dirt. It's given to you about the quantity, maybe a shot glass or something like that, a few ounces. You swallow it. Doesn't taste good. It's not something that can be addictive. It's generally always done in a ceremonial space. You get this medicine, and it comes from the Amazon jungle. It's the leaf. All plant material has DMT. In fact, DMT is made inside of our own brains in the pineal gland, but it's being suppressed. And so what you do is you take a special leaf and you take the ayahuasca vine that's found in the Amazon jungle, and this ayahuasca vine has an MAO inhibitor, so it allows your body to absorb the DMT. And as it's activated, you begin to have what I think is you cross the veil. You begin to have visions and an inner knowing. I've had experiences that have informed my life. I've heard such powerful messages that have helped me. My very first ayahuasca session I ever did, I was in a space, I lay down, and I was like, come on, I want it so bad. I want information. Tell me everything. And I took the first dose, and absolutely nothing happened. And I sat there getting angry, and I'm thinking maybe this guy's scamming me. He charged me a couple $100 to do a ceremony, and he's a shaman. Sure, he's a white guy. Who knows what he is? I don't know. And then he says, you know what? Maybe you need to just relax a little bit. Here's the second pour. It'd been a couple hours. I take the second pour, and he goes, maybe instead of trying so hard, just let go and just let it come to you. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I'm open-minded. So I just lay back and whoosh, I felt this peace, and I felt this kind of heaviness. And I think it was like my body kind of spinning up a little bit. And I saw, had my eyes closed, but I saw with my mind's eye in red neon writing the sign that said, enjoy the ride. And it was cursive. It looked like a Budweiser sign. Enjoy the ride. I'd never heard that before. That's a phrase that I've since realized is a very common phrase. I'd never heard that phrase. And I go, what does that mean? And I hear a voice, kind of this feminine ayahuasca type knowing, and she says, David, that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to enjoy the ride. I'm like, I am not enjoying the ride. Life is hard. I'm having issues. I don't like what I'm doing. And immediately I saw in blue writing, it said beliefs. And it was that same blue neon writing, beliefs. And I'm like, what does that mean? She said, your beliefs become real. And you've been given this religious narrative, you're not worthy. And so everything's coming from that. You can't enjoy the ride if you're not worthy, and you've always got to try to appease the divine. She goes, what if you were worthy? What if you can lay down those beliefs? And what if you can enjoy the ride? And I went, oh my God. And then immediately I saw this thing. It looked like sand, and it was expanding, and it was moving out. And I saw these little tiny specks, and they became galaxies. And then they became planets. And then they became all these things of the space. And I was like, what is that? And she said, that's what you're doing. I go, what do you mean what I'm doing? She goes, you're creating this reality. You are doing this. And I go, what, me personally? She goes, well, it's kind of a unity consciousness. It's kind of a we consciousness, but it's what consciousness is doing. We are creating this reality, and you have to enjoy the ride and don't get stuck with beliefs, because whatever you believe becomes real. And so I'm like, oh my God. And so from that first experience in ayahuasca, it has been so nourishing for me on my human journey. I'm like, well, I'm the author. I'm not the victim. I'm creating experiences, and it allows me to shift my mindset. Am I perfectly happy in all of the spaces in my life? No. Do I think that I can continue on my journey? Yes. But the most important moment is the moment of now in the present. And I was always told you got to work on the future, get to heaven so you don't go to hell. So I was always future based. Now consciousness is like, be in the present moment. You don't have to know the future. You don't have to have certainty. The only certainty you need to know is you're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine.
That's amazing. What an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, I use that word a lot, the opportunity, because I think we have the opportunity to make a choice in life, and we can either move forward or we can stay where we're at and stagnant. We can make a choice as to whether or not we want to believe or whether or not we want to be in a denial stage or an anger stage or something along that line. So opportunity is one of my favorite words, and choice is one of my favorite words.
I
And
love that. That's the same message that keeps coming up for everybody is what do you want to do next? You get the choice. Well, I'm angry about this. So be it. Oh, you know what? I want to open my heart and have more loving experiences.
yeah,
There you go.
there you go.
Choice.
This works. That works. That in itself, we may look. I could talk to you for a whole nother hour. I mean,
Yeah.
our time just flew by. So you'll have to come back on the show, please.
Super fun. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to talk some more. There's so many other things we could discuss and expand and share and do and stuff like that. So yes, you have to come back. But in the
Love it.
meantime, I would love for you to tell everybody how to get a hold of your documentary. I know you said it earlier, but if you can say it again, here's a visual for everybody. Journeys into the Soul.
Yeah, Journeys into the Soul is it's a passion project. It's about me sharing what happens when people have regression sessions. You can go to my website. It's on Amazon Prime in the US. All my friends in Europe, after the project came out, said, it's on Amazon. They're like, no, it's not. We can't find it in our countries. So in the US, it's on Amazon. You can get it through video on demand through our website. And it's a collection of highly entertaining episodes. You get to see people, you realize we're all the same. We just want belonging, connection, love, meaning, purpose. We want to have the feeling that we belong and we have a reason to be here. And every single episode deals with a different issue. There just so many. I mean, which one's your favorite, Dave? I don't know. Which kid is your favorite, right? I love them all. Episode 1 to 20. Amazing facilitators, world-class practitioners, experiences, stories. You're going to laugh, you're going to cry, you're going to hear people telling stories that you're going to relate to. And it is a self-funded project. It is video on demand. There is a price point for it, but there's over 10 hours of content. I created the episodes, and I literally can go back and watch everyone just going, oh, this is so great. And I have the joy of knowing I worked with the facilitator. I had these amazing experiences that week. I got to be buddies with the people that had these experiences, and it is so fun. I love it all. If anybody wants to enjoy the ride with me on this experiences, you're invited to.
And I would tell us how to get your website. Where's your website?
journeysintothesoul.com. You can find everything there. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got bonus content we've attached to it. And episode 1 is available for free. You go to the website, you'll see the link on YouTube. And from there, you can see the bonus content that I did with Ryan some time later. It's just so fun. It's so fun.
Pretty cool. I'll make sure all that's in the show notes too, so everybody has an easy way to just press a button and they can go right to you so they can enjoy this as well. Yeah. David, this has been a fantastic opportunity for us to discuss all things about life, the metaphysical, and what the possibility exists beyond. As I said earlier, I would love to have you back on the show later so we can talk again. In fact, I think I'll watch the whole documentary series, and then we'll come back and talk again.
Even better. Why don't you have your own experience in hypnotherapy, and we'll find out what comes up for you.
What? You see me jumping for joy if I could stand up at the moment, but I can't because I'm hooked to this. Yeah, that's an opportunity. We have to talk about that. Yes, sir.
Yep.
I would love to do that. I think that experience shared is something that people could, like you said earlier, walk a mile in my shoes. Well, people have a visual. I think it helps them to have a better understanding and grasp of the reality of things. So yes, let's talk about that. This is one more thing before you go. Do you have any words of wisdom you can share with everybody before we go?
You chose to be here. You chose to come here. Enjoy the ride. That's the reason you're here. Go through every experience realizing, this is an experience, and I'm going to look at it as the observer of this experience. Wholeheartedly play who you are, be the best version of yourself, and enjoy the ride.
Brilliant words of wisdom. I mean, brilliant words of wisdom. I think that enjoy the ride. It's my new motto. I think I'm going to put that on my computer screen. I'll stick it up everywhere. Put it on our chalkboard out here. My wife's going to go, what is this? Just read it.
Yeah.
Enjoy the ride. Again, David, thank you very much for sharing your journeys. I really appreciate it. And thank you again for creating such an amazing piece of work creatively that allows us to experience what we want to know and what we want to delve deeper into. And give us some answers, give us a choice, and so forth. So thank you for being here.
Namaste, my friend.
Namaste to you. For everyone else out there, one more thing before you all go. Have a great day. Have a great week. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.